support character. It's something that I had in mind since the beginning of the league, even a little bit in Turmoil, and this is going to be essentially my little video guide for it. This portion of the guide isn't going to feature gameplay because it's difficult to feature meaningful gameplay with a support because a lot of the content you do is dependent on the build you're supporting. That being said, this build I've supported characters through all levels of content, through when I was leveling with a group on day 1 of the league, or helping a friend out. I got someone with a level 69 character through Uber Lab pretty safely and quickly, for example, or helping a group with of 2 of my friends with Elder, or I've also run up to tier 14 maps so far with this character just fine. So he's capable of doing all kinds of different content as long as the DPS of the group you're supporting is high enough. So first of all, what is this character? So this character is a champion. I'm currently level 90. And this character does a variety of things. So first, he tri-curses. So he applies Enfeeble, Temp Chains, and Vulnerability on Curse on Hit via a Lightning Strike. Okay? Now, you can use other curses, but those are the ones that I'm choosing to use. And there's different ways you can get your curses. But let's see. I also run 4 auras currently. 5 if you count the champion's inspirational aura. I run haste and then all 3 elemental purities. This build has about just over plus I think about 54% increased aura effectiveness. So each of my auras gives me 81% total max res. And then this build also provides taunt control. So the champion Ascendancy provides us with a chance to taunt on hit, and also makes it so the enemies who are taunted take 20% more damage and deal a total of 20% less damage to targets that aren't us. We also permanently intimidate on hit any enemy that's on full life, which amplifies attack damage by 10%. So that'll help your wanders, your bow users, your melees, and basically anyone who's not a spellcaster. Other than that, we also significantly slow enemies' movement speeds through Hinder and Maim, and I also pretty much am able to keep blind up permanently on anything that can be blinded. So yeah, that's basically the nutshell of this character in terms of an overarching support. So I'm going to talk about how I achieve that, and just the way this character plays. So to do that, we're going to look at our passive tree and our gear. We will start with what I consider, if you want to make a build like this, the unique items that are the core of the build. So the core of the build is Alpha's Howl, to get reduced mana reservation and +2 to the socketed aura gems. We use this for all 3 of our purities. All 3 of mine are currently level 20, and I have an Enlighten that's almost level 2. So when this is level 2, this will let me run a low-level Clarity, as well as allow me to swap 1 unique jewel out of my tree. But I would consider Alpha's Howl mandatory because it's just very good. You want those really strong elemental purities. Next, a Dodrace Damning. So you don't necessarily need one of these, but you need a source of +1 curse. You can get a curse, one additional curse from the tree, but you'll need to get your second additional curse from an item. So you could have a unique that has a different unique that has a +1 curse, or an amulet that has +1 curse. But I think Windscream is, I think Dodrace Damning is probably the best option for a build like this. You don't really need damage from your rings, and the boot slot can have more life than the ring slot, so using something like Windscream is an option, but I would say use this instead. If you can get a well-rolled amulet that has +1 curse, which would be insanely expensive, and probably more than most people, myself included, would justify spending on a support build, then you could use that and use a real ring. But Dodrace Damning is great. Other than that, there are a few other uniques that I would recommend. So I'm gonna grab from my stash just like budget gear, or the stuff that I was using originally. Where did I put them? I think they're currently living here. Anyway, okay, cool. So, no, those are the ones I used. Okay, cool. So, until the point where you have a 6-link chest, it's going to be difficult to apply all 3 of your curses on hit, as long as I'm talking about curses. So for a long time I was using this 5-link here, and I had Lightning Strike, Vulnerability, Curse on Hit, Enfeeble, and Multi-Strike. And then I applied my Temporal Chains via the Ascendancy Gentle Touch Silk Gloves. So if you have a 5-link for your Lightning Strike Curse on Hit, then I would highly recommend 2 curses in your chest. Get the 3rd curse, the Temporal Chains, from this pair of gloves. Or if you can get a pair of gloves that has a curse with 1 curse on hit corruption, then you can use those. You don't have to use the 3 curses that I'm using. You can use pretty much whatever curses you want or are like relevant to whatever party you're supporting. But yeah, that's generally how the curse setup works. So you want at least a 5-link. If you have a 5-link, use Curse on Hit gloves. But once you get the 6-link, you can put all your curses in here, which means that you can use the 10% increased effective supported curses with like a high-level temp chains. And don't worry, these are only low-level because I recently flipped them for quality. But like this temp chains is significantly better than the temp chains in here, just because it's quality. So 5-link and Curse on Hit gloves, or a straight-up 6-link. So the next key part of the build, let's see, also, after you have a 6-link chest, you can swap out your Ascendancy for a quote-unquote real pair of gloves. In my case, I decided to use Tomb Fist. So the reason for Tomb Fist is that when we have a Searching Eye Jewel socketed, which I have here, life and blind on hit with attacks, and some extra move speed, then we maim enemies on hit for 4 seconds with attacks, which further slows their move speed. So this is great. I'd highly recommend a pair of gloves like this, or I'd recommend Tomb Fist or a good rare, like one with life and resists, probably attack speed. Although you don't need too much resist because you have the purities on at all times. But this is a great option once you have that triple curse on hit, or if you only want to use 2 curses. That is another way that you can like begin the build. You just get the +1 curse on the tree. You can use a real ring, use a 5-link, and then use something like this. That's another option. Now on to our weapon. So I'm using Mjolner, and to get enough stats to use Mjolner, I use an Astromantis. Now, the reason that I'm using Mjolner here, it's the skills chain +1 times, and there's another reason as well. But with +1 chain on our lightning strike, that means that each of the 7 projectiles that's fired by it will chain once between enemies, which gives us a lot of hits to pass the curses around. Now, the other bonus thing, of course, obviously, is that Mjolnir triggers the socketed lightning spells on hit. So as long as I'm attacking a boss or a pack of monsters, I'm constantly triggering Ball Lightning and Arc, which are both supported by Blind. So, and I also have Blind on hit from this jewel down here. So because of that, I'm able to keep any enemy, including bosses, and pretty much the entire packs at a time, blind at all times. And when an enemy is blinded, their hit chance is reduced by 50%. So this means that if an enemy had a 50% chance to hit you, well, now they only have a 25% chance. Or if they had a 100% chance to hit you, well, now they only have 50% chance, provided you can evade. So it's a quite strong defensive mechanic. It's one of the reasons why I think Stibnite flasks are among the best flasks in the game. So we can pretty much permanently blind enemies all the time. Now, when you're leveling, and if you want to use Lightning Strike Curse on hit, you don't need a Mjolnir. You can use this sword here, Eor's Mirage. This attacks chain an additional time when in the main hand. So you won't have the blind from the triggered spells, but that's okay. The main thing with this build when leveling, I was essentially a curse and a taunt bot. And I provided enough auras to keep the party capped. Key things when you're leveling this build. I would not recommend leveling this solo. You will hate yourself. And don't you want to level this with a group or doing something else and spend a fair amount of points speccing out of it. I leveled with a group at the beginning of the league. So if you have a friend to level with that can carry you while you support them, that's really good. And when I was leveling, I pretty much did a curse on hit Ball Lightning in the gloves. It was just Ball Lightning, curse on hit, vulnerability, and then I had 4 blues at that point. So, well, 3 blues and a red. So it was Ball Lightning, Enfeeble, curse on hit, vulnerability, and then I got the temp chains from these gloves themselves. So that's another thing you can do if you don't want to use a lightning strike, and I have Resolute Technique to ensure my lightning strike doesn't miss. Now I need to talk about how the champion Ascendancy sort of interacts with this whole thing. So you've kind of got the idea that I hit a lot, and I hit pretty frequently. So in terms of what I did for the lab, and the Ascendancy is a pretty big part of this. I took Inspirational first, because at this point, when I was playing with a group, I was still attacking occasionally, and this is a pretty powerful aura to get, especially at the beginning of the game in normal lab. So I got that first. Now in the Cruel lab, I got Conqueror, and this gives us 25% chance to taunt on hit, as well as 6% reduced damage taken if I've taunted an enemy recently, which is the last 4 seconds, and I get additional life regeneration if I've taunted an enemy recently. Now, the nodes that lead into and out of this both have 20% taunt duration. So my taunt duration in the end, you see that taunt lasts for 3 seconds. Well, my taunt lasts for 4.2 seconds. Now, so because I'm constantly hitting with Lightning Strike and with my Ball Lightning and my Arc, I'm able to keep any enemy that can be taunted. I think the only exceptions are Shaper and Elder. I can keep them taunted pretty much permanently. So it's not uncommon. It's a typical thing of when partying with this character is that you'll be fighting a map boss, say the Villa boss, which is Dominus, and he'll be spraying his lightning everywhere, but it'll only be spraying it at you as long as you've been hitting him. And I also cast Rallying Cry, and we use Rallying Cry because it gives us and our allies increased damage and mana regeneration. So that's a backup taunt if you need like more guaranteed taunt and a further buffed allies damage. Now, the important thing about maintaining taunt control, not only are we making sure the enemies don't target our allies directly, but as you can see, taunted enemies deal 10% less damage to anyone else, and they can only target me. But with Worthy Foe, they take 20% increased damage, so that's 20% more damage that our allies will deal to those targets. And they deal 10% less damage with hits and ailments against other targets. That stacks with the original bonus, so it's now 20% less damage. And that's pretty big, so that's a key part of this build, is that the allies will take significantly less damage just from that and deal more damage just from that before factoring in the aura supports that we already have. And finally, in the Uber Lab, I got First to Strike, Last to Fall. The damage and defensive bonuses on this aren't really relevant for the most part. The key thing here is our hits permanently intimidate enemies that are on full life. So if you can be the first one to slap someone with your Lightning Strike or an Arc or something, then they'll permanently take 10% increased attack damage. And so taking 10% increased damage is 10% more damage for any Wander, Bow user, melee, basically anyone that's not a spellcaster. And yeah, so that's pretty much how like the passive tree works with the whole combination of the build. I hinder enemies on hit with spells because of this jewel right here. So that just further slows them. So the passive tree is pretty much, there's a couple of unique jewels in here that I use. So one is Conqueror's Efficiency. The main thing here is that it gives me 2% reduced mana reserved. This lets me actually have enough mana to use my skills and run like the 106. Yeah, I've got 155%. I've reserved what should be 155% of my pool without any reservation. So once my Enlighten hits level 2, I can drop this for an actual unique jewel, and I highly recommend you do as well. But until then, this is really good to use. And then I also have a Conqueror's Potency. Now, I recommend using this jewel even pretty much. You should be using this jewel because it gives you Curse Effect 4%, which is significant. 8% Flask Effect, which is very important because this build's means of life recovery are pretty much your flasks and your life regeneration. Using the Pantheon that restores your life flasks over time is really important for bossing. And being evasive and not face tanking things that will hit you hard is also very important. And then we also get 3% increased effective non-cursed auras we cast. So that amplifies all of our purity auras and our haste. So that's pretty big. Other than that, I have several other jewels on this tree, but they're pretty much just life and resist and maybe some attack speed. So the tree goes 2 different directions. We basically bail out of duelists as fast as we can to get life, curse effect, resolute technique, so our attacks always hit, and then we get reduced reservation and aura effect, dual curse with curse effectiveness, and then Drop down into Marauder for some extra life and life regeneration. And then you path across the other side of the tree. Path through Ranger for the nice nodes there. Attack speed is really good. And then we get Charisma. This is another aura cluster. Path through the shadow nodes. Path through some life into another aura cluster. So future levels on this character are going to be more jewels and more life. I'm level 90 currently. I fully expect to be able to break 6,000 life, probably either next level or if not the level afterwards. Let's see. Other skills, my boots hold my movement skills, Leap, Slam, and Shield Charge linked to faster attacks and Fortify. My gloves hold my haste and my Stone Golem. Like I said, regen is very important on this build. And I have a Tempest Shield currently. This will get replaced by a Clarity once my Enlighten hits level 2. Let's see, chest choice. So I'm currently using Lightning Coil. The reason I'm using Lightning Coil is because it's a very good source of physical damage mitigation as long as you have high lightning resistance, which I do. I have 81%. So with 30% of physical damage taken as lightning damage, if you look at that 30% and then you multiply it by the 0.19, I'm essentially I'm reducing incoming physical damage by about 24% with this chest, which is pretty significant and it's quite nice. So this character, he stacks mitigation and doesn't have much life recovery outside of his flasks and life regeneration. Just using a good rare ring, good rare boots, good rare shield with good resist and life. Since you're using a fair number of uniques with no resists or negative resists, it's important to have good resists on your pieces that can. And I'm using a Stygian belt. The Stygian vices are really good, and they can enable you to get awesome mods like Hinder on hit or Blind, which are really nice for a support build like this. But yeah, the general way that this build plays, if you pretend this is like a boss or something, you'll like attack, dodge, war cry, attack, dodge, etc. So yeah, he's a pretty strong character. I've been very pleased with him so far. And yeah, if you have any more questions about this, feel free to talk to me or post a link on my forum thread or on this video. And yeah, I'll see you guys around. Hopefully I can feature some more gameplay of this character. I need to find like something that I probably need to find a bunch of different builds to play with. I've grouped with like Righteous Fire characters, Blade Flurries, Cyclone, Trappers, all sorts of different kinds of things. And essentially most people who've played with this build say it makes them feel a lot safer. I can amplify most characters' damage a fair bit. And yeah, but like, I will improve the fire resistance of a Righteous Fire character more than their own Period of Fire does. And I'll amplify damage on their enemies, make sure the enemies don't attack them. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around.